Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So we are day 3, session 1 for the recordings. And I'd love to hear from people who've been here over the few days. If there's things that have come up, if there's questions. Obviously, we had Chris Heath last night, which I loved. And I've heard of quite a few before.
Jason Food.
So I'd like to mute you. Hear from people. How did they find it? Did anything come up? Anything new? Questions? Alan.
Yeah, I think since being around this, I personally have more compassion for things because with everything being from the same source, if you like, I feel I don't know how to put it across, so I try my best. But you know, if you get like a wasp in your kitchen or anything, a lot of people think, "Oh, I've got to kill that wasp; it might hurt me." But if you look at that wasp thinking, "Well, that's come from the same place I've come from," if that makes sense. You tend not to be, I don't know how to put it across in a, you tend to, I feel, just think, well, don't kill it because what right do we have to kill it? That's like us going the wrong direction somewhere and somebody trying to kill us. You know, that doesn't happen because we're humans, but I don't see myself as any different from that wasp. So that's just something from being around this, that's just something I've sort of come across. I don't know if you two have the same thing, but I just feel a bit more compassionate for things. So yeah, I just thought I'd just point that out. Really, it's just something I sort of.
Oh, I love that, Callum.
Yeah.
So we say to Lucia whenever we see any kind of bug or wasp or bee or anything, it's like, it's a wasp friend, it's a bee friend, it's a bug friend.
With a big hornet, didn't we, the other day?
Yeah, I heard this sort of buzzing and I was like, where is that? And I realised there was a hornet like in my hair, on my coat. So then I sort of managed to take my jacket off and I put it down expecting it to fly off and it didn't. So I dragged Lucia back from the park with this hornet on the coat to show Dave.
Where was my phone?
I don't know. And we got some honey for it because it was really hungry. But you were saying it's a time of year where they do start to die. So it wasn't making any move at all. But it is a nice thing when you start to see.
Yeah, you know, spiders. A lot of people are scared of spiders and thinking, "Oh, I must kill it." But for me, I'll just have that sort of compassion to think, "Well, what gives me the right to kill it? Why would I want to kill it? Because it's come from the same thing I've come from. Only because I'm bigger than that spider. But why do we look at it as something to be afraid of when it's just the same as us?" So that's whether that's an insight. That's the sort of thing. Since I've been around this principle, that's sort of what I've sort of come to realise really. So I don't know if that's just what I'd share that with you too.
I think well, anybody that knows me knows that's music to my ears. Because I mean, I love nature. I love all things. I mean, I stopped cutting trees because I started to find compassion for them when I started to realise that. It was a little phrase that ran through my head one day. Consciousness is awareness. Awareness is an experience. And an experience is a reality. So I could see that the trees were conscious, and then this little phrase kind of made me come to see that, well, that tree is experiencing a reality. And then all of a sudden, I suddenly find compassion for the trees. And I'm just going to mute everyone. Just excuse me one sec. Yeah, and all of a sudden it was like compassion for the trees, and I'd always really had compassion for animals. I never had any compassion for people. People are just a pain in the ass. But I even managed to find compassion for people. You know, but I think when people, I remember Melissa, I think she was on day before yesterday or something. She rung us up one day. She's from New Zealand and she came and did an intensive with us. And she went, "God, this bloody cockroach. You know, normally I bloody hate cockroaches."
It's a terrible accent.
It's not, this is perfect. This is perfect accent. And she goes, "Can't bloody kill him now. I've got Dave. I call it Dave. Lives in the bathroom. Saw Dave t'other day squirreling off down the corridor. She's going, wasn't she? I can't kill it. And I think when we start to find that compassion for all living things, we are finding love. Because compassion and love are inseparable. Now, if we're compassionate towards everything, what a beautiful soul. If somebody finds compassion towards everything, what a beautiful soul. I think that is the most wonderful thing. And you look at, why do people actually kill other things like spiders and stuff? It's because they're, with all due respect, it's ignorance. It's ignorance. They're ignorant to the idea, to the notion that they are a separate reality. They're ignorant to the notion that, yes, they are birthed from the same intelligence that gave birth to them. They are equal in the eyes of the universe to humanity.
Yeah, and I think they see it separate when it's not.
Yeah.
They see it as a separate living thing rather than it just being all one.
Yeah.
That's why, that's how I look at it. But we're not all separate, we're all one. So, yeah.
Beautiful, man. Any suffering, the Buddhists would say, anything you do to another being, you're doing to yourself. The same thing. Same thing. So any suffering we bring to the natural world, we're bringing to the universe. We're bringing to universal consciousness. That's what Sid said all the way through it. What we need to do is raise the level of consciousness of the universe. How do we do that? We raise the level of consciousness of ourselves, because we are that. We are that too. And that hopefully that's what this conversation's bringing. And with it, we'll gain more compassion for other beings, because the way humanity has treated the natural world has been horrific. I love that, Cal.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'd like to share that because it's something that I've sort of come across, and yeah.
Love it. Top man. Top man. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it was sort of going from the previous conversation about nature, really. So I had quite a funny thing over the weekend that, I don't know, it was a shift in me about nature and that oneness and connection. So I'm quite, in my property, I have quite a load of trees. And obviously this time of year, the trees shed all over my grass and my area, and I'm constantly, if anyone knows me at all, like my previous history has been quite sort of OCD, and one of my bugbears is around this time, the leaves. So I would spend days, literally hours of my energy and days picking up the leaves, putting them into the bin, and then literally as I'm picking them up, they're falling behind me, and Chris would be cracking up laughing, and the kids would be going, Mum, it's gonna be a forever ending thing. And I'd get really stressed about it, and why can't you help me, these leaves? And it'd really be a big thing, which I know sounds mad to people who don't have those type of thoughts, but that was me years ago, and this year has been really different. So obviously there's lots of leaves, I've got a huge oak tree, it's near enough half shed its leaves onto my lawn and everywhere else. And so I started to pick up, the thought come into my mind, I'm going to pick the leaves up. And so I started, and it was like this nagging little voice, going, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, it's just a process. Like, this is part of nature. Like, leave it alone. And as I was taking up some of the leaves, underneath the leaves were these worms, like hundreds of, like loads of them, and wood lice and all these. And as I literally pulled the leaves up, I saw this, it sounds really weird, I sound a bit mad, but like this connection with those things. Like, I realized that there's an order. The leaves fall, the animals use it to bury under or eat or whatever they're doing, but they need to stay there. And it was something like really deep inside me, just was like, just leave it alone, like, leave it. Do you know what I mean? And so I did. I just sort of tipped the leaves back, and I've I've really let that's massive for me, because I've let all that sort of stuff go. Do you know what I mean? Like with the whole OCD sort of thought processes with it. But I really had this like connection, like with it. Do you know what I mean? Like nature is really. And then of course I was looking up, and I was looking at this oak tree, and I was watching it, some of the leaves, how they're all some of them are changing colour. They're not even. Do you know what I mean? So there is an order. Everything's going at its own pace, and it really made me think a lot about how I expect, well, you know this, Dave and Jen, how I expect others to be where I am on my understanding and my journey. And it was like the tree taught me something, that actually all those leaves are coming off the tree, but they're all changing colour and falling off at their own time. So it was this real connection between, let people just do what they want to do when they want to do it. And that was a bit of an insight for me, really.
I love that, Em. I love that. I love the connection you found. I also love the silent teaching it brought you. And it's like, I remember one of the greatest scientists I ever met was a fella named, what was he called? I forget his name now. Anyway, Joseph. And he was at a spot called Cairnholy in Scotland. A cairn, which is it was a chambered cairn, a burial ground, and it has all these stones around it. And when I first met him, must be about 20 odd years ago, he was up there. He was an American fella. He'd come over to Scotland. He'd gone up to Cairnholy, and when he'd gone up to Cairnholy, he said they had this amazing spiritual experience. And he moved from America to Galloway in Scotland, and every single day he went up there and he studied Cairnholy. He wanted to know what this was all about. He didn't have a clue about Cairnholy, couldn't find anything about it. I'm going to find out. 10 years later, I go back and Joseph's still there. I mean, I assume he went home, but anyway, my mum was with us, and I think it was my ex-girlfriend, not Jenny. God, thank God she's gone. Thanks, Lucy, you saved my life. And I always remember Mum saying to Joseph, so what do you know about this place? And he said, all right, well, I'll tell you what I know. No, she said, how old do you think it is? My apologies. She said, how old do you think it is? He said, right, I'll tell you what I know, how old I know it is. He said, I know it's at least 10 years old, because I saw it 10 years ago. He said, and I saw a photograph of it during the Second World War, so I think it was there then. Other than that, I don't know. He hadn't jumped on any bandwagon. He hadn't jumped on any kind of somebody else's teachings. He was looking for himself. And he said, I know it was there 10 years ago because I saw it with my eyes for the first time. And I know it was there. I think it was there, Second World War, because I've seen a photograph. And Mum said to him, so what do you think it is? And he said, I don't know. What do you think it is? And Mum went, well, I think it's a burial chamber, this, that, and the other. And he went, but why do you think that? Made my mum think, and he said, you know what? He said, if you look at something for long enough, it will teach you something. And I remember that being resonating in my soul. You look at something long enough, it will teach you something. Everything has the capacity for being a learning about life. Even the worms, even the leaves falling onto the lawn. And the learning that we can then take from that. I mean, I always say my greatest teacher throughout the principles, thank you so much, Sid, for pointing me in this direction. And since then, my greatest teacher has been nature. My observations of nature and how I can see when I realized nature isn't separate from humanity, And whatever this spiritual force is living me, it's living all things all at the same time. Behind the scenes, behind the physical appearance of things, there is this unified force. It's like to be able to then realize that makes the whole world a very exciting classroom. One where we can gain insight into ourselves through observing leaves, through observing the cycles of nature, where we can start to see the perfection in nature and then realize, shit, that same perfection exists within me. That same perfection lies within the people who I find difficult to be around. It's inside of them too. But what do I see? What do I see in those people? Because I certainly don't always see the perfection in them. So what's that telling me? I love that, Em. I love this part of the conversation. I sometimes think the principles can be turned into a human psychology. It never was. The principles are not a human psychology. They're the means by which the human psychology functions, psyche functions, but it's so much of a greater conversation. That's why Sid ended up speaking with physicists and all kinds of people, because it was so much more of a greater conversation than just psychology. Love it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. It was literally that. Like the leaves are all the same. Does that, you know what I mean? Like they're all the same, but yet they're all got their own way of doing stuff at the right time. Like the right time, you know. So I even took a picture of it, this tree with all the different colours, you know, like, you know, some had fell, some were still there, really green, some were like orange, some were red. It's just fascinating. But I really made that connection with humans and nature, and the fact that there's no, in nature, in that tree, there was no judgment, like, well, not that I know of anyway, that they're all going, oh, you know, you sad bastard, you're going off, you know, you're not getting on the floor last or whatever, or you're, you know, this colour, that colour. It just really made me see race and everything, like genders, everything. Do you know what I mean? It's like just all the same, coming from the same source.
No one tree looks at another when it's dropped all its leaves and says, you look better with your clothes on.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. You see it, like how much humanity has fought nature rather than work with it. Now, when we look at that on the external, how much do we fight nature on the internal? How much do we fight our feelings? How much do we fight our thoughts? How much do we fight our experience? Because that's nature too. All conflict takes place inside of ourselves first.
And as you say that, something else happened as well that I saw with separate realities. Now, separate realities has always been something I've been interested in this conversation, but more so seeing it firsthand. So we were in some intense traffic a few weekends ago so I had my son and my little one, who's 11, in the car, and we were sat in literally, like, I'm talking about 100 cars, you know, solid traffic in a place that normally there's no traffic. So I'm thinking to myself, have I missed something on the news, that something's happening and everyone's come out to, you know, it's mad. But basically, as I got nearer through the traffic, this gridlock, I saw a couple of cars that were literally basically holding all of us up by parking the wrong way. So going against the flow of traffic, they'd made a mistake and just were blocking it. So all these people were getting out their cars and like beeping, like, you know, it was gridlock. It was gridlock. Beeping, like getting out their car, looking, like sticking the V's up and just going. And even within, I was just saw it for what it was, like, oh my God, I felt totally chill about it. I was like, it's what it is, you know, just let's listen to some nice music on the radio. I didn't feel nothing. I had no thinking about it. But yet my son was literally like undoing his window, like, what's this fucking prick doing? Excuse my language. What's this idiot doing? The fucking what are they doing? Like, and I said to him, we've got all the time in the world. What's going on? Like, what's going on for you? You know, and he was like, well, fucking hell, just because you, like, what did he say? A spiritual, it's pissing me off. Do you know what I mean? I was like, wow, that's interesting. Then I looked at my daughter and I looked at my daughter in the back and she was just like, just looking out her window, singing to the music miles away again. 3 separate realities, but I was seeing everyone getting annoyed. And when eventually the people come into the flow of traffic who were blocking it up, the man stopped beside me in the gridlock. And honestly, the car in front was like calling him a wanker, like doing the wanker signs, and undone his window, having a go at him. And so I had my window undone, and the man was looking at me because he was on fight. He expected me to say something out of my window, and I just smiled at him. I just literally smiled. And he started on me. He was like, well, you smiling at, you patronising bitch. Like, what do you've got something to say? And I was like, no, mate, like, I'm fine. Do you know what I mean? And his missus even said to him, oh, shut up, for God's sake, just do your window. It was just so interesting to me, Dave, how it's an inside out job, you know, and I just keep seeing all these signs and it's like, wow, this is so interesting. Like, I've always seen that, separate realities, but really firsthand, you know.
The beautiful thing about this is you can see something and you think you've seen it. And then you see deeper and you're like, oh, hell, all right, okay, all right. And then you see deeper again, you're like, all right, okay. And at some point you then start to kind of get a little bit humbled by your little ego. Then you think, oh, I thought I knew something about that. I've done this countless times. I have done this countless times, to the point now where thankfully I kind of go, I don't know, I'll wait and see if anything more emerges. Because when we're talking about the infinite, I remember somebody once saying to me, you know, I am of the opinion that humanity is entering a more loving state of connective, awakening experience as a whole, right? And the only reason why I say that is because since I started sharing this in 2013, I've just seen this conversation go massive. And that's just this conversation. Okay, and so around the world, there are people all around the world who are getting interested into the nature of maybe not necessarily religion, but the spiritual, the esoteric, the pre-existing, whatever you want to call it. They're getting interested in the nature of mind. They're getting interested in who and what they are. You know, and if people are looking in that direction, they're looking on an inward trajectory. So there is only really one direction these people are going to be walking on, because once they start to get a taste of it, the reason why everybody's here is because we had a taste of something and we're like, I know that's true. I know that's real. And I know there's more that I can see. And we're all excited by that prospect. Some of us are slightly impatient, but on the whole, we're all excited by that prospect. So it's like, but I remember saying this to somebody and she said to me, she said, but Dave, if this world goes into a more loving state, then doesn't that take away from the infinite nature of everything? Well, I sat there and thought for a second. And she was meaning by that, what she was meaning by was, if we kind of funnel ourselves into an experience of love, then surely we've left behind infinity. And we've then created this kind of non-infinitiness around humanity. And I said to her, yeah, but within the love, there is infinity within that too. There is infinity within infinity. That's the whole point of infinity. So no, even if humanity does wake up tomorrow morning and everybody is in a loving state, there is still the infinity within love. Because you cannot condense infinity. It's like fractals. So it's like, when it comes to people, when it comes to separate realities, I've actually drawn a little diagram in here because it was something you said day one. I think it was you, Em. Dealing with others in a low mood. Em, was that you? Can't hear you.
I said about acceptance.
Oh yeah, acceptance of self, wasn't it? Yeah. Right. All right. Well, somebody spoke about dealing with others in a low mood, and I've noticed it. It's cropped up a couple of times throughout this conversation. So I just want to kind of address that. I won't spend too much time on it, but I want to address it because I think it's something that you came across whilst you were in your car, both inside your car and outside of your car. And we thought we'd have a little conversation around that just to begin with today. Now I've drawn a little diagram and I've got this metaphor. This isn't my metaphor. This metaphor is from
Mexican Toltec.
Yeah, Mexican Toltec. He wrote the 5 Agreements. Somebody might know his name. Whoever wrote the 5 Agreements, this was his metaphor. I don't want to take credit for it. But I remember listening to it. I used to do a lot of forestry and stuff, and I remember I was felling out with Kirby Lonsdale and had this talking book on me. God, bloody hell, I sound like my gran. I had Audible on my phone, and
you had an app on your phone.
I had an app on my phone. I didn't have a tape stuck in a tape deck when we talking book on. And I remember him describing this, and I thought that's a really beautiful way of describing it. That's a really beautiful way of describing experience. And he said, imagine you walk into a massive multiplex cinema.
Put it off. I've got you bought Bayosas. You can cook them and fry them just like they. I think that's what they use.
Annette, you're not paying attention. Pay attention. we heard you.
Muted you.
We muted you. And he said, I see you. And he said, imagine you walking into a massive multiplex cinema. Many screens, all down one corridor. As you walk in, you see all the screens, door 1 off to one side, door 2 off to the other, door 3 off to the next day, door 4. All these massive screens. He said, and as you walk in, he said, it's completely empty. There's only you in there. You walk in, you walk up to the cashier to go and give them money. There's nobody there. It's all open. But there's nobody in this building. He said, so you stand there for a moment before you decide, do you know what? I'm just going to go and have a look. I'm going to see what's on the screens. He said, so you walk into screen 1. And as you walk in, it's pitch black. He said, you notice there's something playing on the screen. And you stand there for a moment. You look around. There's nobody in the auditorium. It's completely empty. And you look back up at the screen and what you see is something that's very, very familiar to you. You look up and you go, oh, that's me and that's Jen. Oh, that's us. Oh, there's so-and-so, so-and-so, and that's so-and-so, so-and-so. That's that place. I know where we are there. Oh, that's my life. That's my life. And you look a little bit closer into the auditorium and you see somebody sat right in the middle of the seats. It's pitch black. You can just make them out. So you gently just creep up to them, have a look, and you look at the face and they don't see you. But you realize it's you. It's you sat there watching this screen. So with that, you get up and you walk out. You walk out into screen 2. You walk in, it's pitch black. You look around the auditorium, you can't see anybody in it. You look at the screen and you go, oh, look, it's the same screen as what was played on screen 1. I know this film. Hold on a minute. That's not me. That's not Jen. That's not Dad. That's not Mum. That's not my sister. That's not Lucia. Sorry. That's not Lucia. Yeah, it looks totally like us. That really looks like us, but I'm not like, that's not me. I don't behave like, that's not me. I'm not like that. You take a closer look around the auditorium, you see somebody sat in the middle. You look in and realize it's Jen. I'm really sexy in this one, by the way. True, isn't it? So, then we get up and we walk through to screen 3. Same screen, pitch black. You look up at the screen. You're kind of getting aware of this now. You're like, right, what's this one going to be like then? All of a sudden, Dave's there, looks really, really annoying. I can see my mum, I can see my dad. They're nothing like in screen 1. They're nothing like in screen 2 either. Totally different. Dave's really annoying in this one, and you're looking at it and you're going, I don't get this. I don't get this. Why is every screen so different? Why can't people see me for who I am? And why are they all different? Why is everybody different? You have a close look in there. You see somebody sat in the middle of the auditorium. You have a little sneak up. They don't see you looking. It's my dad. You go across to screen 4. Same crack. You walk in, it's pitch black. You get the picture. What I love about this metaphor is it gives us like a visual kind of example of the nature of how our interactions with people are born. You know, no 2 people meet the same Dave. No 2 people meet the same Jen. No 2 people meet the same Lucia. You know, I don't always meet the same Jen myself, day by day by day by day, or moment by moment by moment, should I say. And what I love about it is it points to how everybody we meet is a creation within ourselves. It's a reflection of our own inner being. If somebody's coming across annoying and winding us up, it's because somewhere inside of us we carry the belief that that is annoying. What they're doing is annoying. Perhaps we take it personally. Perhaps we make it about ourselves. I hear you.
Hi, Luce.
Hey, Luce.
You're busy. You might have to leave.
Little bugger. Everybody we meet is a character we make up for them. You know, it's probably really bad, but I always say I'm really grateful that my father doesn't see me in the same way as he sees my mum. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks.
Thanks, Luce. But we all see different people. We all meet a different character for every single person we meet. And that person's character changes throughout the day as our state of being changes. So I love what Em was saying. you know, that person who was aggressive towards her, without awareness, it would be very, very easy to assume that that's who he is and blah, blah, blah. But because she was on a more relaxed state of mind, it didn't wind her up. She could see with clarity, wow, he's just had a really hard time just now. So when it comes to dealing with other people, and we're not saying if you're like in some abusive relationship, don't look after yourself. We're not saying that. But what we're saying is, and don't do what you think is logical for you to do. Don't, you know, if you need to leave, get out, get out. But what we're saying is, when it comes to people trying to change other people, that person we're trying to change is actually a reflection of our own thought. They are a creation within our own mind. That is the nature of separate reality. Even people we meet are a character that we have assigned them. Quite often we make up our minds about people just like that. I know what you are like. And we stop listening, like I did with my father for all those years, until the one day when I realized, oh, Dad hurts. And then all of a sudden his character changed. Why? Because he was a character within me. He was a character within me. Yeah, Baba. Brilliant. And as my experience of him changed from within myself, I interacted with him different and my relationship changed. You see, I always thought he was the problem. I didn't know it was me. I couldn't see it was me until it became obvious. Nobody told me that. Nobody explained that to me. And it's really easy for us, like Christine was saying last night, you know, when it comes to family and friends and our closest people, it's so easy for us to carry the most amount of ego around them because we think we know them better than anybody else. No, it's the same crack. Everybody is a reflection of our own inner creation, because that's what reality is. Reality is a reflection of our own inner being. We see what looks like out in the world is a reflection of our inner creation. Something stressful, it's because we believe it to be stressful. It's coming from inside of us, not towards us. If somebody's a difficult person, it's because we believe in them being difficult. You know, the moment that belief quietens down and perhaps we see them from a different point of view, oh, they're difficult. Well, they seem a bit stressed, actually. These people seem more stressed than difficult. Their character will change in front of your eyes. Why? Because you created them. I'm not saying you created their body and created their human, but you created the character that you assigned to them. So when it comes to dealing with difficult people, the most difficult person we have to deal with is ourselves, because ourselves can be quite adamant at times that it's right. When we start to take responsibility for our own experience, relationships change like that. And if 50% of a relationship changes, 100% of that relationship must change. It's so simple. You're going to put that down. I wouldn't stick a breadstick down the top. That'll get it all crummy. But go for it.
Okay, going back to what Callum was talking about, but also separate realities, is at the moment, for some reason, in our shower, every morning you wake up and it's full of millipedes. And
you call it millipede factory, don't you?
Yeah, it's so then you have to sort of go around trying to collect them all and put them in pots and then take them outside, and you come back and actually one's escaped, it's going up the wall. And I've normally got Dave to do it, and then since having Lucia, I haven't wanted her to kind of pick up on all my weird little things, so I've been like getting tissue and picking them up. And then the other day I got one, and then actually there was a slug in there, and I'm really weird about slugs, but Dave always calls them slug friends and looks at them with Lucia. So I managed to pick it up, and then as I was taking it out, she was looking at it going, wow, and it's like little his little things moving. What I can't think what they're called.
It's eyes.
No, it's not. Oh yeah, they're eyes. They're not ears. And I was like, you look really cute. And I think that's the first time ever I've looked at a slug and thought, you look really cute. Because in my mind, slugs are, I don't like them, I don't like the texture, and I'd never want to hurt one. But I've loved how there's so much thinking that we have in our mind that we have targeted that doesn't change. And then stuff that's kind of really, it's not really been a problem to me in my life, that I'm a bit weird about slugs, but suddenly I get this whole new experience of them. And I think it just showed me you literally can have a new experience of anything. And if we get fixed in kind of what we think and unbending, we don't allow ourselves that space or that freedom to think again and to think again. And that's where it comes in. Like, I think I'm right. I think the conclusion I've come to is right. So then that stops all flexibility and thinking. And I think I've loved, and both of us, I think, have done this many times. Like when we've been teaching the principles, is what is it we're teaching? What are we pointing to? And is this helpful? Like when we went out to Nepal, we went out to these amazing little villages to share the principles with a lady called Terry Broughton, and it was something called the WOW Project. And we kind of got there and we're like,
well,
do we need to be sharing?
Because we questioned it, because they had all these Western schools at the top of the mountains, didn't they?
Yeah, so they were kind of getting an education, but then there's no jobs. So then the only way to kind of continue education and get jobs is to move away from your village. So suddenly these villages are becoming very different places. So they're not really self-sustaining in the same way that they were. And, we've introduced packets of, shampoo and conditioner in like little tiny packets. So there's rubbish everywhere because they're really only used to throwing away natural plates and products. They wouldn't have had plastics, which biodegraded. So now there's litter everywhere. So we questioned, like, well, who are we to come in with an understanding that we think is helpful?
Because we saw the damage that the Western ideas were coming in. They seem to have this. Sorry to interrupt you there.
Yes.
They seem to have. They have this village that was working. It was self-sufficient. Everybody survived. Everybody had the community. But then they brought in these Western schools, and all of a sudden the kids are like, because the reason why I went in was because there was a massive problem with teen suicide, wasn't there? They developed this massive problem with teen suicide in the foothills of the Himalayas. And it's because these kids have got all this education, and then they've got nothing to do other than move away to Dubai, India, Kathmandu. So that's why we questioned: are we posing a problem coming in with our ideas? So sorry, just wanted to make that clear. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think that's something which I've loved and I love about these events, and I love about working with people, is questioning and pushing on what I think I know. And different experiences we've gone through in the last few years, people have said, has it made you question the principles? And it's funny because I think there's something that happened to me on that very first course at the age of 23, where there was just a shift happen, where it's like I knew I'd touched on something true, and it's been my kind of North Star or foundation from which I've then lived from. And it's become less and less and less of a thing, and it's become less and less and less of a theory or a concept, which in the beginning I did have concepts and theories, and I've had less and less to hold on to. And it's weird because I used to think, oh, we've got 3 days, how am I going to fit everything into that, of what I've seen or what I've learned about these principles? And now I'm like, wow, I've got 3 days, like what's going to unfold, what's going to come? Because it's such a, truth doesn't change, but the way that we experience it and the way that we share it, the way that we see it changes. But I feel like the truth and the feeling is what's that deep feeling of something true has never changed. But it's really, and so I love when people kind of do have like an argument or they want to kind of debate it, because I just think, well, there's nothing really to debate. And then what we then do in the world is I do what makes sense to me. I don't think, oh, the 3 principles means it's like, it literally is like, I do what makes sense to me. And I feel like Roger Mills's role was to introduce me to myself, to my inner guide, to my teacher, and then be like, right, you're good to go away now, live. You know where to look for answers, you know where to look. And I feel so grateful for that, because without that kind of, like a bit with Dave, I was so up and down with my mood and so kind of anxious, and I don't know where I'd be today if I'd not come across this. It felt like my world was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Like at primary school, I'd be joining in school plays and singing in the choir. By secondary school, I think maybe the first year I did that, then I wouldn't do that. And like everything that I thought was possible was getting smaller and smaller. And suddenly I came across these principles, and it's like, bang, everything got blown open. And I got to rethink everything. Like, who am I? What is life? And I think the direction with this and with this understanding is that you go, it feels like it goes away from like a self-study of how am I doing, and is this going to help with my anxiety, and is this going to help with, and you start having eyes for like magic in life, like the fact that Lucia sees a millipede and she's just like, oh wow. And there was one night at our friend's house, she was laid on her back, and then suddenly there was these daddy long legs, these massive daddy long legs all across the ceiling. And she just kept looking at us and going, wow. And like that wonderment. And I feel like I get to experience more of that now than I ever have, because you get to see with fresh eyes. Like, I felt this understanding is directional. There's a movement in it, and it's towards openness.
Sorry.
It's towards what's true. It's towards being in the moment and being just open. And the thing that I came to, I said to you about a year ago, I've realized I don't know anything about anything to do with anything anymore. Like, I can't, people say, you know, what can you hang your hat on? But I'm like, I don't pretend to know anything anymore. And it's so much easier to live, because then people can talk to me about anything, and I don't have to like give them my opinion or say that I see it differently. I'm just like, wow, you might have the opposite complete.
Snapped a breadstick.
The new breadsticks.
It's a brand new breadstick, wasn't it?
And I think that's what I love about, and I'm so grateful for everyone being here today. I know it's like a Monday, and we were like in the car today going, what is going to be able to show up on a Monday at 3 o'clock? It won't fit back together, but you could get another one.
I'm gonna get another one.
No, it's all
I think it'll be all right. You're gonna eat it anyway.
yeah, so thank you everyone for being here. Like we were saying, if no one's here, we're still going to need to do the recordings. We're just going to have to sit and talk ourselves. That's going to be really boring. Like, I don't even remember why. It's so funny having Lucia here, because I said to Dave, I can see, like, I'll be so present speaking, and then it's like, if Lucia needs me, my attention goes. And I'm glad that's what she needs at the moment. And so sorry if I'm a bit disjointed. But we like her to be a part of it as much as she can. Uh-oh. Is that sit in my lap? Oh, you've got delicious.
Has anybody got anything they want to say?
Should we go and sit?
Yes, please.
Who was that? Who was that?
It
Who
was
was that?
Annette.
It was Annette.
It's me again. Sorry about the disturbance. I rushed back from the shops to get on. I was unloading the shopping. I hadn't muted myself. But I just want to say, Jenny, if I could describe words and express myself about how I feel, I would have just said what you exactly said. Absolutely. And what I feel like, and I just love coming to this because it just gets me into the energy of it. But if I could describe it, it feels like it. And I don't even call it the 3 principles. I work with people. I just say well-being. I don't say 3 principles. I don't use that terminology. But I feel like it's in my cells. I feel like it's in the cells of my body. It's like permeated me over the years. And I call it the background hum. It's always there if I want to hear it or feel it or see it. It's always there, kind of present and waiting for me. So it kind of feels cellular. So what you were describing, Jenny, was just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And what an incredible creation you two have there. So beautiful. So thank you. I really appreciate you holding these to be
Oh,
able
thanks.
to just come in and listen to everybody's
Jen,
experiences.
come on the phone. Jen's going to join on the phone. Lucy has just had
Okay.
She's been grumpy the last couple of days.
Hey,
But
we
I
all go there.
Yeah, of course. But I love what you're saying. It's like, yeah, it becomes your background hum.
Yeah.
You see, what's like Sid said, you know, you take your understanding with you. So even once you've seen something into this, even if you dip, if you want to call it dipping, even if you dip, you end up in some kind of horrible space. There's this part of you that's aware. That changes everything.
Yeah.
That changes everything.
Totally.
I think it allows us the grace to experience all of life. And I don't know about anybody else, but I love the idea of a full life. I like the idea. If somebody said to me, right, Dave, you're just only going to experience this certain range of feelings from now on, how do you feel about that? I think I'd probably go, no, no. I want to be human. I want to be human. I know that probably wouldn't resonate with everybody. You know, some people are like, I don't want to be human. I really don't. I just want to be happy all the time. That's cool. But I feel like the more you embrace the human, the more happy you actually find.
Yeah. The name of front page of my website is Simply Human.
Beautiful. Beautiful. In a world full of people who are trying not to be, it's a wonderful thing. There's not many people just who are prepared to just be human. Just be themselves. You know, we've grown up in this idea we have to, what's the word? Prove ourselves, be somebody, leave a legacy, be remembered. I remember working in prison one time and this lad said, what are you doing in here? And he went, oh, I've done some stupid shit. I said, right. And when I spoke to him, he said, well, do you know what, Dave? I just really want to be remembered once I'm dead. He said, I don't care whether it's for something good or for something bad. I just don't want to be forgotten. That man was terrified of being forgotten. So much so he was in prison. Like, our desire to be noticed, to be somebody special, it's one of the most uncomfortable places we can find ourselves in our lives. Desperately trying to prove ourselves, desperately trying to be a somebody, trying to be different, trying to stand out, trying to be noticed. Notice me, notice me, notice me. I'm going to say outrageous things. I'm going to say an outrageous thing. Please notice me. I'm going to do an outrageous thing. Please notice me. I think, I mean, I used to be that way. I was such an insecure human being. You know, I wanted to be the best tree surgeon, but I didn't have to say it. I wanted other people to say it. I might ask leading questions that I might get the answer. You know, and I wanted to be the best at everything. I wanted to be seen as the best, and I wanted people to tell me I was the best. I wanted to be noticed. I needed reassurance. I needed reassurance in my life. A hard man. I wanted people to be afraid of me, to be notorious. And I remember after I woke up, walking down the street and seeing people, just people. Everybody who was on the street was a people. And then I realized, and I'm just a people to everyone else. I'm just a person walking down the street. They don't know my insecurities. They don't know my crap. They don't care. They're not remotely interested in Dave. I thought because I saw a reality that everybody else must see it. And so therefore, if they're seeing the same reality as I'm seeing, they must be able to look right through me and see all my insecurities. So I did my best to hide them behind muscles, hid them behind words, hid them behind aggression, anger. I tried to cover it all up because I assumed everybody else was seeing it. No, it was only me that was seeing it. Everybody else was seeing a totally different Dave, depending who was sat in the seat, whoever was sat in the auditorium. People had already created their version of me, but I didn't know that. I think when I saw people, I saw separate realities walking down the street. I don't need to do that anymore. I can just be me, however I'm showing up, whatever me looks like in any given moment. I can just be that. I can just be that. I stopped attracting the likes of people that weren't particularly wholesome for my life. And I started to attract people who were more aligned with my way of being in any given moment. More aligned people. You know, when I woke up, I think of all my closest, dearest friends, I'd probably say now I see about 5%. The amount of people that just fell out of my life when I woke up. It's not because I don't love them. It's not because I don't care. It's just, I'm not on that path anymore. I love them all and I'm grateful for their time, the wonderful times that we had. There's some really good people in all of that, some really wonderful people in all of that, and I love them dearly, but I'm just walking on a different path now. And I've made so many other friends along the way. It's the comings and goings of life, comings and goings of experience. And I think it was Ram Dass said, just make friends with change. Make friends with change. Change is the only constant, really. It's like Lake District weather. If you don't like the weather, give it 5 minutes. Anybody else? 1 second, I'm going to grab my clock. Anybody else? Sorry then, Maze.
She said, turn the camera off quick.
Talk to.
Come and say hello. Shy. I'll turn the camera off for a minute.
Yeah, right. Look.
There you go, so he saw you peeking.
Still see you. Does it make sense what we're talking about when we're speaking about dealing with difficult people? I mean, we can go into all different kind of, or down all different kind of roads with that conversation, but what we're pointing to is the fundamental. If somebody is difficult for us to deal with, it's starting to see that the whole of our experience is being born from within our consciousness. We're like a fountain that just eternally spewing up a conscious experience. a consciousness experience. The fountains within us, eternal fountain, is constantly turning out an experience that looks like this life right here, right now. Looks like this. The whole of experience is coming from within ourselves. That's why when M spoke about the bloke in front of this fella was giving him the wanker sign, and M's like, I'm not in a rush, no problem. I haven't got a problem with this fella here. That difficult person, I'm right. You don't appear difficult to me, mate. You just appear really stressed out. But to everybody else, he looked like, I don't know, a nuisance, an ignorant soul, a this or that. And even the leaves, they look annoying. They look like they're just bloody trees. The amount of trees I was asked to cut down because they drop leaves. Because they drop leaves. Because they leave the spot untidy. The amount of times I was asked to cut down trees. I was the wrong person to ask that. But then all of a sudden the leaves suddenly look like home. They look like a food source. They look like an essential part of the ecosystem. They no longer look annoying. They look like a fascinating aspect of life. And nothing has changed in the world. The only thing that's changed is Emma's mind, Emma's thought. But there she is in a whole new experience, perhaps one she wasn't even expecting to ever encounter. There it is. A more compassionate one. Like Callum was talking about. I think I'm going to leave the leaves. These lot obviously need them more than I need it to be clean. When we start to see that the whole of experience, the whole, not 99%, not 95%, not 90%, not 20%, like it's been discussed lately, but the whole of experience is coming from consciousness. It's the spiritual force that is present in order for life to be present, in order for experience to take place. Because if you really look at life, you see that life and experience are exactly the two words for the same thing. The victim dies. You know, the victimhood dies. The only thing that we are really a victim of is our own misunderstanding. There is no thing outside of us that has the capacity to create an emotion, to create a thought. Nothing. No person can create a thought within us. No person can create an emotion within us. It comes from us. There is no victim. There's just total power, total strength, total capacity to deal with all of life. But we also have the capacity to dream that we don't. We don't have that. We're free to dream whatever dream we wish. Anxious, nervous, shy. Nah, we made that up. Angry, depressed, worrisome human being. We made that up too. go-getting, high flyer, whatever it be. We make it all up. We make up all these identities. Jenny used to think she didn't have an ego because she was shy and retiring from people. She didn't then. She assumed ego was like somebody who's big and kind of flamboyant and gregarious and, oh, look at me. But then she realized her anxious, nervous, shy character was one of the biggest egos she'd actually come across. She realized she had enormous ego. Anything that we think we are is ego. Anything we think anybody else is ego. It's all ego. The moment we give character to anything or anyone, including ourselves, that's ego. It's a belief. Belief and ego are the same thing. The belief system and the ego are the same thing. It's that flavors and colors our worlds. Thought. So in truth, the ego doesn't really exist. It's a thought. People dedicate a lifetime to seeing past the ego. Or lifetimes, I don't know. But most of the time, they don't even know what they're trying to see past. They don't realize it's just a perspective. It's the way they believe about things and people. That's what the ego is. It's the beliefs that jump in first and take center stage in our consciousness. Thought. And Sid was pointing directly past the ego. It's all thought, he said. It's all thought. Some people hate this point. But it's a fundamental point. It's all thought. It's thought that creates the dream of our experience. How could it be anything else? We dream our world. We always have done. We always will. We're dreaming it right now. Right here, right now, this is it. This is an experience of consciousness through the senses, creating something that looks so real, so factual, undeniably realistic. When our minds get quiet, there's a stillness, there's a peace. There is no problem. There is no broken. There is no depression. There is no OCD. There's no PTSD. There's no psychological illness. There's no angst. There's no anger. There's no hatred. And all that happened was our mind went quiet. There's just being. There's just life. no addiction. There's no bad habits going on. There's no beating ourselves up. There's no I'm not good enough going on. It's just life. There's just observation. It's just experience. There's just a blank canvas for the future. Brand new moment, eternally, from which the rest of our lives start. Now. Past is gone. It's done. It's over. We made it. When our minds quieten down, the future disappears. Terrible looming event vanishes. Like it was always a dream, but we couldn't see it. When our minds go quiet, the ego doesn't exist. That's how massive it actually is. When our minds go quiet, it doesn't exist. That's how much of a problem it is. Why people love painting, going for walks, running, horse riding. Metal detecting. People do it when they do it. They do their hobbies when they do something they love. Their minds quieten down and you enter into this little meditative state. Peace is found. But it was always there. We just thought it wasn't. That's why M can sit in the traffic jam and be at peace, when many other people couldn't. Let's take a 10-minute break. I've got 4:20. We'll come back at 4:30, so 10 minutes. We'll make a cup of tea, and then at 5:00, we'll do half an hour just conversation, see if anything comes up for people, any questions, and then at 5:00 we've got Aaron Turner coming online with us. Cool. Okay. All right, welcome back, everyone. Anna, welcome, love. Thanks for joining us. Yeah. Last day. Mad. It's mad how quickly these things go. I really enjoy these. I really enjoy retreats. Right. Does anybody have any questions? Is there anything anybody wants to share? I think there's a couple of people who are still doing stuff because I see the faces haven't come back up on screen yet. But is there anything anybody wants to share? Any observations, reflections, questions? What are people hearing? What's making sense? What isn't making sense?
That we basically know nothing. And to strip it all back and be, yeah, just when I think I know, I go deeper. That's it for me, really. That's what I've learned. When I think I know, I'm in ego and I've just got to drop. There's always something to find out.
And I think go easy on ourselves. You know, when we are in that state of being, it's very easy to beat the shit out of ourselves and think I should have known better. In that moment, we couldn't have known better. If we'd known better, we'd have done better. Same as everybody else. Very easy to create a war, especially with ourselves. But there's not a single winner in that. There's just suffering created from within. That's just more ego. Annette, ask a question about OCD. I get the feeling you want to.
Yes, I'm in between a 16-year-old and a 96-year-old and everything else that's going on that I'm trying to listen in. I heard you mention OCD. My daughter has it, and you said it doesn't exist, and it drives me nuts. And I kind of know it doesn't exist, but it does exist on one level, and I'd love to hear your take on it, because it's all about contamination and food and yeah.
Yeah,
I'm hoping it's a passing thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced it in my life.
Okay.
Especially when I was a teenager.
Okay.
And it generally was was a consequence of worry.
Seems to follow anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was usually based in some kind of future predicament that might occur, some kind of prevention of it taking place, some idea and belief that I carried around. So the OCD, I mean, I did weird shit. I've done weird shit most of my life, to be honest. But I used to kind of have to touch things in the room a certain amount of time, and if I got it wrong, I'd start all over again. And I never told anybody about it. I just kind of got on with it. Light switches, did weird shit with light switches, and then one day I just forgot about it.
Right.
I just forgot about it. And I mean, somebody may say that's not what you would term as OCD, but I think it probably is. It was very obsessive. It was very, very compulsive. Was it disordered? No. No, it's not a disorder. It wasn't disordered. It was totally ordered. I thought down a certain line, so therefore I felt down a certain line, and I behaved down a certain line. That's not disorder. That system, that mechanism by which experience is born, it's never disordered. But it's a symptom of anxiety, worry. You know, but then okay, if it's a symptom of anxiety and worry, what is anxiety and what is worry? Well, it's thought. We're back to thought. So, yeah, okay, it exists on one hand. But on the other hand, at a deeper level, it is no different to...
What flavour yogurt you want?
Flavour yogurt do I want? It's made of exactly the same thing. And when it's forgotten, it's like she doesn't do it all day, all the time. No. So when she's forgotten about it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
All right. But we treat this as though it's some kind of physiological ailment. Now, if it was a physiological, I don't know, if I've got a broken leg, for example, I'm going to have a frigging broken leg until it's healed. It can't just disappear. If I've got cancer, watch this beautiful woman today on something on in the northwest of England, and she had HIV. This beautiful lady had HIV, and she was talking about the stigmatism of having it and how she can live a full life. She will always have HIV, apparently, according to what we understand at the moment. So you could say that's a physical ailment, you know, because if you've got cancer or something like that, you can't just forget the cancer in the daytime and it disappear, or the broken leg and it just disappear. But these psychological ailments, they come and go, like an addiction. Addiction isn't always present. When an individual their mind isn't on drugs or substance or behavior, then where is the addiction? Because OCD and addiction are almost, you could say, they're very similar traits. But where is the addiction when the individual has forgotten about it? When they're just getting on with the day, just doing this, that, or the other, or whatever it be, driving, tidying the house, or sitting down watching a film, having a conversation with a friend or a loved one, or taking the dog for a walk, and their mind isn't on it. Where is it? You see, it's a thought thick like everything else.
Yeah. I get to see, I can see clearly where it's coming from. But I just know that she's got to see that for herself one day. And I think my best strategy is just as much as I can, just leave it all alone. Just let it take its journey with her.
The more we feed it, the bigger it becomes, it appears to become. It actually doesn't become any bigger. It just becomes more kind of a thing in our mind, which is why I'll go back to Sue again. Sue was the one person who didn't see me as like some broken, fucked up thing. She was my light. And just that one person knowing I was all right allowed me to come through and out of the reality I was birthing. Sometimes we just have to be the light. It's difficult when it's family sometimes.
Makes you grow deeper. Yeah.
It's all thought.
Yeah.
It's all thought. We create identities for everything. And the moment we create an identity for something, we give it a label, we give it a name, whether it be a cup, a pen, or ourselves, Dave. It starts to look like a separate entity or like a little island in the ocean. It's not. It's just we think it is. We think it's something more substantial than what it actually is.
Thank you.
It's a beautiful thing, you know. When you see the simplicity of life, you know everybody's all right, even if they don't. And sometimes Jenny says, you know, right now, we're going to hold we know you're okay until you're ready to pick it up. Just one person doing that for somebody, knowing that they're all right, knowing that their experience is what's going on. They know what the crack is. That'll change a life. That will absolutely change a life.
Thanks, Dave. I think Kelly wanted to ask something. I just noticed.
Cool. Thanks, Annette, love. Thanks for the question. Was that useful?
Yeah, great.
Do you want to
Really,
expand on it?
No, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, love. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I've heard you say before that things that we worry about are not really real in that sense because they're a kind of like future, kind of the future doesn't turn up in the present. And while I understand that, there's one thing that just constantly kind of gets me, which is worrying about how I'm going to financially provide. Now, if that's and I know that, you know, I hear a lot of people worrying about money. What do you say to people when they, you know, when you're in a kind of like, you know, how do you tell people that that's not real too? Because that seems very pressing for a lot of people. And so if someone came to you and was saying, oh, I'm really worried about my future, I'm really worried about how I'm going to provide for my family and stuff like that. And I've heard you talk around that before. I just wondered if you could speak around that a bit. I don't really know what I just asked. I hope that it made sense.
Yeah, it does. It does, love. Well, first and foremost, it is totally 100% impossible to worry about the future.
What, because there's no point?
No.
Because people would say that they are worrying about the future.
Yeah, but they're not.
Okay.
They think they are, but they're not. it's impossible to worry about the future. 100% impossible to worry about the future at all, about anything. Because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist to worry about. It doesn't exist. So if it doesn't exist, it's impossible to worry about it because it doesn't exist to worry about. However, people experience the illusion of worrying about the future. So what's really going on? If you look closely, you will see that the source of that worry is a thought in the now. How will I possibly support my family financially? Is a thought in the now, creating an experience that looks like it's a worrisome thought about the future, when in actual fact, it's a worrisome thought now. The future doesn't exist. So what we're really suffering is an image or an imaginary circumstance that we're dreaming up and terrifying ourselves with it in the now. That's what's really going on for people. That's what anxiety is. It's what worry is. It's a thought in the now. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a thought in the now. And another thing that comes to mind as you say this, it's like the thought, the future is infinite potential. It's infinite potential. None of us know. And when Jen and I were getting together, I remember her telling the story. She was running a retreat, and I think it's Robin Charbit and Robin and I forget his mate's name. Anyway, they asked Jenny to do this, to demonstrate this thing they were going to do, this exercise whereby, oh, somebody's trying to get in. Sorry, Julie, love. I don't know how long you've been there. And they did an ABC. So A had to talk for 30 seconds about something that's bothering them. And B and C, they just sit there and they listen. And then they have a conversation between themselves. B and C just converse. Hiya, Julie, love. B and C just converse. As though they were walking through the supermarket, they overheard a bit of a conversation and they've carried on walking through the supermarket and had just carried on having a conversation about it. And so Jenny spoke about, she said, you know what? And this was when Jen and I were getting together. She said, I've just kind of entered into this stage where my life is so uncertain. I'm in such a massive unknown. I don't know what's going to happen with my work, what's going to happen with my career, what's going to happen with my house, what's going to happen financially. I don't know what's going to happen with my family and friends. And then Robin and his friend sat there, and she said, within one or two things that I said, she said, I heard one of them say, isn't it funny? She thinks she lives more in the unknown now than she ever has. We've always lived in the unknown. We've always been all right. Even when we've had our hardest times, we're all right. We figure it out. We deal with it. Life is so much more difficult when we're trying to deal with the something that doesn't exist. How difficult is life when we're trying to deal with the future? How difficult does life appear? How worrisome does it appear when we're trying to deal with something that doesn't even exist? Of course, it's because it doesn't exist. So therefore, we're living in this fractured idea of what reality truly is. When in actual fact, reality is the now. goes for the past as well. Doesn't exist. Has no bearing upon our now. The past has zero bearing upon our now, other than that we think it has. Thought. Time is an illusion of thought. Time exists in thought. Thought does not exist in time. We only ever have to get through the now for the rest of our lives. That's it. Doesn't mean don't make plans. Doesn't mean don't make sensible investments. Not talking about that. Do that. I've got to get a passport photograph still, Denise. Shit, Hannah. But does that make sense, Cal?
Oh, hang on, I've lost you for some reason. Oh, there we go. Yeah, yeah, you know, and sometimes it really makes sense. And then sometimes I get caught in this kind of like thought of it and I can't seem the worry about it. And then I can't seem to get out of it. I feel like I get kind of stuck in it. And it's one of those things.
Welcome to being human, love.
Yeah.
Welcome to being human.
It's funny, like I sometimes I feel like, I've been around the principles for a while and I've seen such massive positive effects, and I can be in that place like I know that Jen speaks about, and I can sort of be in that lovely feeling, and then all of a sudden this will come, oh my God, how am I going to financially provide for my future? And it comes into my brain and then it just floods. What am I going to do? What am I going to, then all this other thinking then starts. And then I find it really difficult then to get out of it. And then all of a sudden it just goes, and I'm back in that feeling again, and then I'm fine. And I think, God, what was I thinking about that for? Why was I doing that? And I may have stayed in it for quite some time, and for me, like an amount of time that I find quite difficult.
Learn to accept the storms.
Yeah, and it just sort of feels like, oh, then there might be another thing I was worrying about. Is it kind of like, oh, you pin in your thoughts on the worrisome feeling. So you think, oh, it might be, oh, it's about this, or it's about that. It's just actually you're having a worrisome thought. So you're going outside yourself, trying to find reasons for having it. And then because you're going outside yourself, trying to find these reasons for having it, it keeps you in it for longer. It sets up a kind of like...
We've pinned the blame for our feelings as a species on everything other than our own mind.
Yeah.
We've pinned the blame of our feelings on everything other than the actual source of them.
And the source of them being our thought created.
Remember, when we're talking about thought, we're talking about be careful not to give thought an identity. Thought has no identity. Whatever you think it is, it isn't. And it doesn't matter what anybody thinks it isn't that. Because that is a creation And when we're talking about the power of thought, we're talking about infinite possibility, infinite creative force, pre-existing. It's nothing that gives birth to every single aspect of experience we undergo. It's a spiritual, fundamental essence of life. Careful not to give thought an identity. Oh, I know what thought is. Gain a respect and an appreciation for the magnitude of the force that causes, that lives us, that we are. This phenomena called thought that guides, that lives, that breathes, that animates life and all beings, animates a universe. Everything is an idea of the universe. Whatever creates the universe, everything is an idea of that. Gain an appreciation for that point. Gain an appreciation for, as Sid said, we're not talking about your thoughts, we're not talking about my thoughts. Look to the power of thought. One of them's looking at the illusion, the creation, and the other one's looking at the fact, the truth. Truth. When you discover truth, it sets you free. Truth will set you free. But you are that. I always say, you know, I have illegal thoughts, I have immoral thoughts, I have thoughts that I won't tell people for fear of social isolation, fear of other people's judgments. I have worrisome thoughts, I get fed up, I get pissed off with something, I get bad-tempered about something. I have all kinds of weather. But one of the things that I was granted was the freedom to not really be bothered by all that shit anymore and just accept it. Accept the humanness of being human. Accept that sometimes we are going to think about what the future might look like. That's all we're doing. We're only thinking about what the future might look like. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist to actually worry about. Right, Aaron's just arrived.
You'll have to sit with Luce because she's still eating.
Is she?
Or I can put my video on in here.
Okay, love.
I can try.
Hey, Aaron.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. Oh, you're in Hawaii.
Isn't everyone in the morning? Sorry.
Isn't everybody in Hawaii? No.
Yeah, no, I just realized that I'm totally in my own world here. Sorry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Doing good.
Oh, thanks so much for joining us, mate. Jen is on a screen. I don't know. Let me get this in. Let me just let people in. I don't know if you've got many screens up.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So you can see Jen, can you?
Mm-hmm. I can.
Real.
I can see Jen. And I thought I saw Peter a minute ago.
Yeah. Jen and I have fallen out, so we're in different rooms.
Fair enough.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi, Peter. Oh, and Sue. Hi, Sue.
I got you on the phone. I got you on the phone, but I could see your mouth moving, but there's no words coming out.
Oh,
So I've got you on the computer now.
okay.
I'm going to turn it off on the phone if I can.
Oh yeah, I can see you. I can see the mouth moving, nothing coming out. Yeah. I can
All right.
see Andy and Jerry and Ali, Katie, Callum. Nice to see you guys. To name but a few.
A name but a few. Yeah, man. Thank you so much for joining us, Aaron. Jen is not sat next to me because Lucia is feeding.
Ah, okay.
We
You
discovered
have to be
takes a
quiet.
long time. Say that again, love.
I said I was going to say I will try and join in, but I don't know how quiet she's going to be. She's got the chat on today, and all she wants to do at the moment is pour things. So she's been pouring water and tea into different cups for like the last hour, and getting it all over.
Nice. Sounds like a good time.
All right. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Hang on. Oh, you put it in your food. There you go. Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been a while since I've heard you speak. Hang on. Put that in there. Isn't that
I
what-
have to tell you, Jenny and I both agreed we were never going to teach Lucia the word no. And my bloody mother taught her the word no and ruined our lives.
Yeah. What was her idea that she didn't learn the word no? She'd never understand that idea. Is that the
Yeah. If she doesn't use the word no, she can't use it. But my bloody mother taught her it, and now she uses everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
Well,
anyway,
forbidden fruit, isn't it?
it is. There she is. So Jen was going to do the introduction, Aaron,
Okay.
but it's going to be left to me because I think it's just going to be a little bit easier. Everybody, this is Aaron Turner. For those that don't know, Aaron has been around the principles for a very long time. And you did a lot of work with Sid. Aaron also had one of the biggest training programs in the world, One Thought, with Mara Gleason. And you've done some wonderful work. You've worked in industry. You've worked all over the world. You run the Innate Health Conference, the Three Principles Conference in London, which is online and I believe in person this year. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, like we haven't been around the community for a long time, for 8 years, I think it is. And we thought it would be really, really nice to just kind of get back involved, get hearing people, invite people who we haven't had speak before. And Aaron, you came to mind. And we thank you so much for the kindness you've shown our family. And if there's one thing that I can say about you, Aaron, it is you are a good man with a good heart. And we are really, really grateful for the kindness and love that you've shown our family. So we don't have anything in particular that we would like to address or anything like that. We'd love to, if there's any direction you want to take this conversation, we're going to leave that up to you. There may be things that come up. We know we've only got you for an hour. It's probably 55 minutes now. I know your time's precious. But I don't know if you want to leave some time for some questions. That'd be wonderful. But yeah, we'd like to hand it over to you. See if there's anything you want to talk about or however you want to play it. If you just want to ask questions or whatever, leave it up to you.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Jenny. Thanks for inviting me. It's lovely to be here. It's nice to be able to be with everybody here. It's nice to see you. I'm really happy to talk about what you would. I don't know what you've been talking about. The last little while that you've been meeting, because you've been meeting a few days, I think, right? Yeah. So, I'll kind of share with you a little bit. You know, there's not much to talk about. You know, there's only 3 principles. So we can talk a little bit about that, and then see what you want to talk about. You know, have a bit more of a conversation about it, because in my experience, the fundamental, the beauty of what we're talking about is that the fundamentals are really limited. You know, like I said, there's only 3 principles, and so there's not really much you're looking towards. But the challenge of it is that there's endless depth. There's absolutely endless depth. And sticking to just those three things, that's the real challenge, is taking it seriously, you know? And it's interesting because I look back on my experience, and the first insight I had was before I was really interested in the principles. I was sitting at the back of a lecture that George Pransky was doing, and I had an insight that I'd been looking for clarity in the wrong place. I'd been thinking to try to get clarity, whereas actually it had always just popped into my head when I wasn't thinking. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my God, you're looking in the wrong place. Clarity doesn't come from thinking. And implied in that insight was it comes naturally. You don't even have to do anything for it. And it really hit me to the point where a lot of the thinking I was doing just stopped making sense. It's like, why would you do that? Like taking the wrong turning. When my daughter was younger, she used to go to a gymnastics class. So the first week she went to the gymnastics class, she called us and was upset because she got on the bus going the wrong way. You know, so she's going away from the class, and she was really, really upset. The next week she did the same thing. Now, I don't know, she must be some kind of genius, because she got on the bus going the wrong way 3 weeks in a row. You know, there's only 2 directions it goes. You think if you went the wrong direction once, that would take care of it, but no. And that's kind of that's kind of what I saw is that, oh, I'm looking in the wrong direction. And it was profound for me. However, I don't think I got the real value of that insight. The real value of that insight was that there was an understanding that could guide me in the right direction. For me, it was a one and done. Oh, wow, that was useful. Anyway, where was I? I just went about the rest of my life, with whatever crazy understanding of life I had at the time, you know, blaming other people and trying to feel happy by working harder or whatever. I didn't realize that there was a truth underneath it. And to me, that's where the real value kicks in. The real value kicks in is you've got the key to decoding life. You got like I had a client a few weeks ago. I said, well, what are you looking for? He says, I'm looking for the blueprint to find the kind of experience. I'm like, wow, you definitely came to the right place. Because the principles are pointing towards a blueprint. And the beauty of that blueprint, the beauty of it is it's so succinct, right? So yesterday, or the day before yesterday, I lost the key to the rental car. And there were like so many places it could have been. But when you're looking towards the principles, it's only one place. There's only one place it can be. So it's an incredible gift to have such a simple understanding that, in my observation, it's true. It's actually true. And it's really, 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 really simple, you know? So you don't need to do a lot of work. You don't need to understand a lot of things. You just have to be willing to consider it might be completely and utterly true. And you don't need much more to explain things than mind, consciousness, and thought. Right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So the beauty of the idea of mind, consciousness, and thought is it's suggesting that we're all the same, we're all the same energy, we're all the same intelligence, we're all the same essence. And it's not an essence of form, like I'm a human, I'm a man, I'm, you know, so and so years old. It's not about that. It's at the essence level, which can't change. That's why Sydney Banks talked about it's spiritual, meaning it's not affected by this world. You know, so somebody asked me last week, well, what about trauma? And it's a tricky topic to talk to somebody about, because basically what the principles point to is the essence of mind, the essence of life, the essence of us can't change, can't. Going through a trauma, yeah, it creates some monstrous thoughts and feelings. I mean, you got to respect that, but it doesn't get in. It doesn't change the nature of consciousness. It doesn't change the nature of thought. It doesn't change the nature of mind. It changes, it creates certain experiences, but it doesn't change the core. And what the principles point to, which we're considering, I guess if you're on this call, you're considering it, and if you're not, you better be, is that at core, there's a perfect intelligence and a rich depth of feeling, of love, well-being, connection. That's what we are. That is what we are. You don't find many places that are really clear about what our nature is. You don't find that. So one group I was talking to, I wanted them to look towards the fact that when you feel better, your mind's clearer, you have better thinking. I wanted them to consider that. So I said to them, okay, when do you have your best thoughts? So one person puts up their hand, they're like, well, I think people are different. See, some people have better thoughts when they're under stress. Some people are better when they have more space. It's an individual thing. Right? I mean, I hate to admit it, but I had an agenda. I'm like, no, in my head, I'm like, no, wrong. This obviously I would have come across too dismissive. So I said, oh, okay, anybody else? So the whole group got into this discussion about how it's all individual and it's not the same, and you have to be sensitive to what different people function better under different feelings. And I kept trying to point them back to, you know, the universal part of it is that in different states of mind, we're all very similar. You know, you put every one of us in an anxious state of mind, we'd have very similar things about whatever was in front of us. You know, so if one person was catching a train, they'd have anxious thoughts of feelings about catching a train. And if another person was at home with their family, they'd have anxious thoughts about their house and what they were going to do for dinner. And it'd be the same experience, just the different information, right? So I thought, oh my God, I don't want to get in an argument with them because I got 2 more days with them. so okay, we'll leave that. We'll just come back to it another time. At the end of the day, I said to them, listen, overnight, I want you to consider what do you notice about yourself when you've had your best thinking? Think about times when you've had your most clearest, most helpful thoughts. What would you say about yourself at those times? Right? So they come in the next morning and I asked them, and every single one of them said it was when they were at ease, they didn't have much on their minds, they were feeling really good, they weren't really, every single one of them, right? And what that points to is something that, you know, I think we're all discovering as we go, is that the nature of the mind and the nature of our experience is universal. And it's very simple. But we can have all sorts of ideas about it, right? Which make it more complicated. So one of the challenges in going deeper in these principles is the principles are they're a really uncompromising straight line, or, you know, guiding star or whatever. But yet all of us have all these ideas that point us in all these other directions, like, oh, we're all individual. And like Leela and I have been wanting to support organizations that are trying to help with the climate, you know, because we want them to be able to do their best work, because we feel like we need it right now. And we were really struggling that part of our work was really difficult. We were really struggling, and we were trying to figure out, well, what is it about this you know, this field that people are, it's difficult to work with them and they're not really interested, and maybe it's because it's such a crisis and all of this. Well, that was like, we spent 6 months essentially chasing our own thinking about what was going on. And it wasn't until we stepped back to look at what was happening with the principles that we sorted it out. Because when we step back, we're sitting on the tube and we're talking about, oh, these organizations that we want to help. And all of a sudden we realized we were in a reaction about the climate crisis. We were insecure. We were desperate. We were upset. We were panicked. Right? So if we're trying to help them have more clarity of mind and we're in a panic, how do you think that's gonna go? Yeah, these crazy people are gonna help us with our sanity. So it's like, it's such a small set of variables, but the challenge is our way of understanding things points us in all these different other directions, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Right? So the principles points to the fact that we're experiencing our mind, right? This is just my understanding. Please don't take it as gospel, because I know for a fact I'm not enlightened. I know for a fact I don't understand it properly. But this is the understanding that's clearest to me, that helped me in the right direction. Okay, so but one of the things that's fantastic about this is every piece of understanding of the principles that anyone here has got, they got from themselves. They got from their own clarity, their own wisdom, right? And it doesn't matter who you were listening to. Like, you know, you could spend time around Sydney Banks and he was very, you would kind of, I don't know, go in a different direction in terms of your consciousness because of where he was at. But what came out of that came from you. It came from me. Oh, this is a thought. This is all thought. That came from me. Because if I don't see it, it doesn't mean anything to me, right? It's just words. Do you see what I mean? Right? And the reason I'm saying this is because it's really important, but it's really simple. There are so many people trying to understand these principles from somebody else. And that makes it seem more difficult than it really is. Because you've already got it, right? You've already got it. If we're the same wisdom, if we're the same intelligence, then I couldn't possibly have anything that you don't have. It's not possible. It's not possible. Now, I might not see everything. Well, I definitely don't see everything that I have, and you might not. But it's really important to realize you got it. It's coming. And when you're not concentrating, or when you're listening, or when you're, it come out. All you need is just to be open to the fact that you don't know, and to kind of just have a more open mind about it. And then the intelligence of you, of life, will kind of give you understanding as you go. See? And the point of this conversation is just to help us sort the wheat from the chaff in terms of the thinking we have, you know. Because lots of the thinking we have points in like crazy directions. It points in crazy directions. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how does the principles help us with the right direction? Well, we've been talking about the first bit, which is the most profound bit, which is that everything you're looking for, everything that's rich, everything that's possible, everything that's capable is natural to us. It's within us. It's what we are. It's fundamental. You know? So you'll see a lot of times people worry, and me too, we worry our little butts off about our thinking. Oh, my thinking's this and my thinking's that. And I wish I didn't have this thought. And well, go away, thought. Why are you back here? I thought I told you to go. Oh my God, someone help get this thought off me. Right? But we forget that is small potatoes, right? If the essence of your mind is everything profound, more profundity than you can imagine, and is what you're looking for, then what difference does it make what thought does? Because thought is so unsustainable. It's so insubstantial. Thought has no essence. It has no life of its own. So it's absolutely guaranteed that every thought you have will run its course until the last one, obviously. But it has no life of its own. It has no form of its own, you see. So we're experiencing that essence, that wisdom, that intelligence, that energy of life that we are, that we call mind, through thought, right? So thought gives it different feelings, different forms. So we see an outside world and we see it in line with I think of it as a level of clarity, but the quality of consciousness, or the level of clarity, or the levels of purity or distortion, you see it in that way. So when your thought's very neutral, very clear, you feel a lot of depth. You know your own mind. You have more perspective. You have more understanding. You know which way is up. You don't really need any help. But yet, because of that innate love and care, you want to help others, right? And that's a profound feeling. Right? But that's having enough space in your thought, or having enough clarity of thought or neutrality of thought, that you're feeling something that's not coming from the thought, it's coming through the thought. And as we start to get more, I don't know, distortion of thought, I think about it, or more personal content in thought, or more content in thought, then you experience that, and you have more insecurity, or more uneasiness, or more take things personally, or you feel a bit down. That's anything that is, it's all an experience of mind through whatever editing thought does, right? Through whatever, I don't know, form thought puts on it. So if you find yourself explaining what you're seeing and feeling by anything other than mind and thought, you have to be willing to consider you're wrong. Right? Because every time you do that and you think you're right, you'll be headed in the wrong direction. And I'm telling you that from my own experience, not like someone who goes in the wrong direction told me that. No, that's my experience for sure. And and what's really interesting about the wrong direction is there's lots of road signs. There's lots and lots and lots of road signs. And those road signs are, there's lots of feeling road signs where you don't feel good. You know, you just don't feel happy. You don't feel at ease. You're not really enjoying your life. There's lots of road signs in terms of your clarity. You don't quite know what's going on. You're not really clear. You don't feel the meaningfulness in things, right? There'll be all those, and then there'll be road signs in the world, like things don't work properly and they don't work out properly, and things are off in your relationships, right? So there's like all this feedback, and the principles are a gift because they give you completely the answer to how to interpret that feedback. And if you it's just misinterpreting is the problem, right? Because it all works the same way always, but we get off track and things get complicated when we misinterpret it. Right, so I'll give you an example. So we work with a lot of hotels, and I was in one of them, and a bar manager pulled me aside. Said, "Aaron, do you have a minute? Do you have a minute? Can you have a minute?" So what's wrong? He's like, "Oh my God, I need help. I'm really stressed." So I asked him the question, "How come?" Right? That's a test. It's going to tell me where he's at. So if he says, "Oh, it's a bunch of stressful thinking," then I know he's good, right? But if he was interpreting it that way, he probably wouldn't be asking for help. Right? So he says, "Oh my God, I got so much going on." I'm like, there it is. He's asked the question, "Why am I feeling that way?" And then he's gone, "Oh, I'm so busy." That's a big but that is not correct, right? And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. That's the principles point to a truth, right? So I said to him, "Oh, really? It's because you're so busy, is it?" He says, "Well, that's not the only problem, Aaron. So not only am I really stressed, but things have fallen apart on the team at just the wrong time." So what do you mean? He says, "Well, up until recently, aka until I was so stressed, I had a really good rapport with my team. We worked really well together. Well, they started kind of reacting badly to me, and then they started, not liking when I approached them. Now they're not really even talking to me. So I got that problem, right? So I wanted him to see that you're living at the effect of the thought that you're signing up to, right? I said, well, how are things at home? So, oh my God, now that you mention it, there's another bad coincidence. My partner's completely put off with me. Now, the only problem that he had was he missed the fact that whatever you're feeling is part of the thought that's determining how you're seeing. It's always coming from thought. Whatever you're feeling, if that's what the principles are pointing to, your consciousness, your awareness, anything that is in your field of experience is thought. And what is thought? Thought is the form in which we're experiencing the essence of mind. That's it. So you're experiencing the same thing, whether you're at work, whether you're at home, whether you're on your own, whether you're with 1,000 people, whether things are going well, whether things aren't going well. The beauty of the principles is it's pointing to, you're experiencing the same thing. So you always have the potential for any experience, because you can have any thought anytime. And you always have the effortless potential for a deeper experience, because that's what we are. That doesn't take any effort. It just, as soon as we're not looking towards the thought we're in, we have a different relationship to those thoughts. That gives us a different relationship to mind. You probably noticed that. It's like when you're not really worried about what you're thinking, when you're not really worried about what you're feeling, when your mind's free to be free, you go in and out of experiences, and you kind of drop towards a more natural, what I would say, conducive feeling. Yeah. So the reason I said that there's not much to talk about is because it really is, we're really considering, oh, we're only ever experiencing mind, thought, and consciousness. And the only thing that's changing is the way that we're understanding and relating to those thoughts, right? So sometimes people say, oh, I did this as well. Not people. Oh, okay, so it's how I relate to the thoughts. Okay, I'm going to change the way I relate to my thoughts, right? It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You relate to your thoughts based on the way you understand those thoughts. See? A lot of people are, oh, I'm trying to get rid of this thought and I can't get rid of it. Yeah, how are you understanding it? Are you taking it seriously? Do you think it's related to anything outside of you? Does it make sense to you? Those are the things that matter. You can't help someone let go of a thought they think is relevant. Can't do that. And you can't help someone let go of a thought that they think is coming from the outside world. You can't do that. So the only thing you can do is clean up your understanding. And I don't mean intellectually, I mean in essence, so someone says, oh, I know it's a thought. Well, are you treating it like it's a thought? Do you honestly feel like it's a thought? Well, what are the symptoms of knowing something's a thought? Well, it doesn't matter. It can't hurt you. It's temporary. it's not real. That has a feeling. Do you really consider something that feels terrifying as a complete fantasy and a what do you call it, hologram? That understanding has a feeling. Nothing to worry about. I'm good. You ever notice that as soon as you have an insight, as soon as the thought doesn't go away, but you feel better because you understand it doesn't matter. It's thought. It's an illusion. What does illusion mean? Something feels different than it is. Thought is the ultimate illusion because it feels solid. It feels real. It feels important, but it's not. It's a complete illusion. And that's where we struggle. See, remember how I said we have the benefit that this blueprint is so simple that there's only really one place to look. And you ask yourself, well, if that's true, then how am I getting lost so much of the time? This illusion. This is why we get lost so much of the time, because the true nature of thought, that it's made up and irrelevant and can't hurt you, and who's afraid of the big bad thought, is camouflaged by the fact that it feels so real. It feels like it's coming from the outside. It feels tied to really important things. And that's what we're up against. That's where the rubber meets the road. And where we see it, we don't worry. And where we don't see it, we worry. But we try to help ourselves by doing something about the thought. What I've seen is it's easier if you do something about where you're at about the thought. How are you understanding it? Are you willing to consider, as bad as it feels, it doesn't matter, it can't hurt you, it's not significant. What if it is thought? What if it is thought? And then what does that mean? If this is thought, what does that mean? I remember I was having there was a period where I was having a lot of trouble getting nervous about speaking, and I was about to go and do and talk, and I was kind of at the point where I was like, my nerves are getting worse and worse, and my talks are getting worse and worse, and this talk doesn't work out. I think I'm probably not cut out for this, So I said, well, okay, I got to get this together. What do I have to get together? Okay, let's try going back to the principles. Okay, fine. All right, so I'm really nervous about this talk. What do the principles say? Okay, feeling. What's the feeling? Nerves. Okay. What do you do about feeling? No. What is a feeling? Okay, feeling's a thought. Okay. So what happens with thought? Oh, you either live it as if it's real or you realize it's not. Okay, what does that mean? It dawned on me. It means the way you solve this problem is you have to realize it doesn't exist. If you're dealing with this problem, you're accepting it exists, you're validating the thought that created it, there's no way out. That's why things have been getting worse, because I've been treating that thought like it was real and then trying to get rid of it. See that? How can that work? It blew my mind, because I'm sitting there thinking, is this a joke? Because if this is right, then the solution is being willing to go out there as if nothing's wrong. Now, I know what that feels like, but it doesn't feel like I should do that or I can do that, but that's what the principles are saying. That's what they're pointing to. I was like, oh, okay, so the solution is you're fine. And that completely changed the way I listened to those anxious thoughts, right? So I'm walking down to the hall and I'm like, oh my God, this might not go well. It's like, yeah, whatever. Whereas the last 6 or 7 times, oh, it might not go well. Oh, what am I going to do? Okay, keep it together. Right? It's 2 different ways of relating to a perception, a set of facts, a feeling, is recognizing, oh, it's all the projection of a thought. And the feeling tells you how pure that thought is, how much impersonal intelligence, how much love, how much wisdom versus how much, personal chit chat. Right? But that's everything. Like it's insane the way the principles point to that. That's everything. All that's going on is you're having thoughts that feel real. You have more or less understanding of them. And as a result, you're more or less happy and clear versus lost and uneasy or distressed. That's it. But the endless challenge of it is we get pulled into the way it feels and the way it looks, which is more complicated. Or, well, this is different, or this is more serious, or this is involving, I don't know, a house rather than just like I had someone say a few weeks ago, look, understanding the principles has cured my anxiety, because I can see that there's nothing about getting on the bus that entails anxiety. So it's got to be my thought. However, I'm not doing so well with my relationship falling apart, because that's something real. See, you make a difference. In one area, they're fine. In the other, they're lost and tormented and really struggling, because they stop seeing, or even the way you see your relationship is thought to thought to thought to thought, right? And if you really take a look at it, nothing stays still in our experience. We see it in nice ways, we see it in unhappy ways, we see it in insecure ways, because we're seeing it as it's created in our thought, moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. And the challenge of these principles is to really consider, oh, it's that simple again. And when it feels complicated, you got to be willing to consider, oh, maybe I'm misunderstanding it, because if the principles are right, then it's always simple. If it feels like there's a problem, oh, maybe that's a thought. Because when my mind's unburdened, things don't feel like a problem. It doesn't really matter what they are. They don't really feel like a problem. And I know sometimes that's a challenging thing to consider, because the way we're feeling it and the way we want to see it is like, no, 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 no. So I kind of like to let myself see it however I want, but I don't want to call it what it's not. Right? So if I'm upset with someone, I like to let myself be upset with them, but I don't want to call it clear thinking. I don't want to call it a clear mind. I don't want to call it their fault. I don't want to call it anything to do with anything other than the thoughts that I'm having and my desire to stew in those thoughts. It's got nothing to do with them, so I don't blame it on them. And that's it. It's just calling, in a way, the way I'm thinking about it at the moment is understanding the principles is appropriate labeling. That's what it is. Everything's got to be labeled as thought, and the feeling tells you how deep or clear or useful that thought is. That's it, just appropriate labeling. You can do whatever you want with it, but if it's labeled appropriately, you'll be fine. This misunderstanding is the killer. It's the upsetting, disorienting part. But the beauty is, it's very simple to come back to understanding, because it's a profoundly complete and simple understanding. It's really, really easy to, if you want to, it's easy to come back to, because it's so simple and understandable and unchanging. So that's what I wanted to share. And I'd love to have time to, whatever you want to talk about, whatever you'd like to share, whatever your understanding or you want to kind of talk over together, I'm really happy to do it.
That was fun. Thanks, mate.
No, it's a
Enjoy.
pleasure.
I enjoyed.
Good.
Anna's put a love heart up. All right, everyone. Has anybody got any questions, observations, reflections for Aaron?
Yeah. Anything you might want to talk more about? Anything that's occurring to you, or anything that kind of, as I was talking, was like, oh, you have that. I'd love to hear a bit where you're at.
When you lost your keys,
Yes.
I don't know about you, but if I ever lose my keys, I always go back looking to where I know it frigging well isn't. I am pretty sure they're in this drawer. But I've emptied the drawer. Right, I'm going to check one more time.
Yeah.
No, oh, did I miss it? Did I miss it?
Yeah.
And that's what I heard you describing all the way through, is that our capacity to kind of continually look at the wrong place, continually look in the wrong direction, even though we've got evidence for it now.
Yes.
That it's not there, even though we can categorically see it's not there. This this habit of ours to just not see it in that moment, and not to look in a more wise place, a more obvious place, a more. It only is where it is. The keys are where they are, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like we always want to look somewhere else where they're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bugger for keys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because it just shows you how thought messes with us. Like, because those, niggling, insecure, maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
I remember at my cousin's wedding, his brother had the ring and he just kept taking it out. And like, what you're doing is like, I just keep thinking I'm going to lose it. And I know I put it in my pocket, but I have to keep taking it out to look at it. And it's just how thought messes with us. It's like you put it in the pocket and you're watching him thinking, this is the most likely way you're ever going to lose it, is you keep taking it out of your pocket.
That kind of ties in quite nicely, Aaron, actually, because about half an hour before you came on, there's a question about OCD. That's kind of OCD, isn't it? It's like, it's still there, still there. Could you talk a little bit about what your understanding of OCD?
Yeah. Well, OCD is a good example of what happens to us as the clarity of our thought deteriorates. See, so the way I understand it, the way it makes sense to me, as we get contaminations of thought, we get contaminations of feeling. We're literally the way I think we're feeling the clarity of our thought, right? Because when our thought is clear, we feel the richness, more of the richness of mind. And when our thought's distorted, we feel those distortions and they have unpleasant feelings, right? Now, I have OCD thinking. Well, I had a lot more before I understood the principles. But as my mind gets more insecure, it has more insecure, dysfunctional thoughts and feelings, right? Now, different people have different kinds of dysfunctional thoughts and feelings. The common theme is they're dysfunctional. They're not helpful, right? So if my mind gets more stressed or more insecure, I get more insecure, obsessive compulsive type thoughts, like you have to get to there by there, or there's something bad's going to happen, or you have to, you know, that you have to. But they're just the kind of anxious thoughts. And the only question with those thoughts is, does the person know they're just anxious thoughts, or are they taken in by the reality of the thought, right? So before I understood the principles, I treated my obsessive compulsive thoughts as if they were related to my life. Like if I did the thing right, things would have a better chance of working out. Or if I did it wrong, things had a worse chance of working out. Now, if you stopped me and sat me down and said, do you think that's true? I would have probably said, I wouldn't have wanted to say yes, but I really did feel it. Like I had the feeling that, you know, that anxious feeling gives you that feeling of trepidation and importance and all of that. I was treating that feeling as if it was credible, right? Now, what the principles point to is that feeling tells you the level of distortion and dysfunction of your thinking, right? And that doesn't take away the fact that we have dysfunctional thinking. It gives you understanding when you have it, right? So we're talking about understanding that when we have disturbed feelings, our disturbed thoughts are just that, they're disturbed thoughts. Now, you'll see patterns for yourself that you'll have certain kinds of disturbed thoughts. You know, you have your more common a garden disturbed thoughts, right? So I've had obsessive compulsive thoughts. I had paranoid thoughts, right? You have a paranoid thought, it makes you feel like there are things afoot that are kind of conspiring against you. Right? It doesn't mean that there are, it means that you feel like there are, right? Now, the thing that makes a difference is how you take that experience. So if I take that experience to be insightful, I live as if there are things afoot conspiring against me, and I live in that like it's true, and it's no fun, and it really is dysfunctional, meaning I'm off in a random direction that doesn't help me in any way, and it affects my relationships, and it affects my experience, and it affects whether I lose my keys. I mean, it's everything. But if I'm willing to consider that the feeling tells me, oh, these are not useful thoughts, all of a sudden, I'm able to have those thoughts without them having me. Right? The difference between being paranoid, being OCD, and having paranoid or OCD thoughts or depressed thoughts or insecure thoughts is our ability to recognize that they are just thoughts and that the feeling tells us that they're probably misleading, unhelpful thoughts. Now, you don't need to believe me on this. You just have to look at the way life works. Just look at the patterns. Look at what happens, right? All of the, more, I don't know, times in my life where I'm struggling a bit more are when I'm treating thoughts and feelings that don't feel so good as if they're true or useful. That's it. I mean, that is it. That's what I'm saying. This is the complete hack to everything. But the challenge is willing to come back to the same premise, willing to come back to the same understanding. If you're feeling really depressed or you're feeling really and ADHD is very fashionable right now, and that's the same. It's like it's a symptom of certain kinds of agitated thought. It's a speeded up mind, right? Like if you drive a car really fast in first gear, you'll have some symptoms. Be very noisy, be very smelly. You wear your gearbox or something. I mean, I'm out of my depth here, but you wear something out more likely. So it's the same with our mind. Like we're living in the wake of the way we're relating to our thought. We're living in that wake, right? And what we're considering is, well, why am I so this way? Well, what if it's thought? Is there any pattern to the feeling when I do that? Oh yeah, I'm always insecure. Oh, well, what if I'm taking those insecure thoughts as if they're related to the situation? No, they're not related to the situation. It's not the situation. So you see how it will clean itself up? Right. So if you have OCD thinking, that's what happened to me. I'm like, so really these principles are saying that these thoughts are irrelevant until I make something of them. They're just something that happened in my head. Oh, you got to get to that ladder before the next car comes. Oh, okay. So they don't have to matter. It's me that decides whether they matter. Oh, see how much freedom there is in that? That you go from being bullied by your thoughts to realizing you got nothing on me. But what's nice about the principles is you take something like paranoia or OCD or ADHD, and it's all in the same category. It's thoughts that create realities, that create patterns of behavior if we're guided by them. But we're free not to be guided by them. Thought doesn't tell anyone what to do. It lays something out that the person can act on or not. It's neutral. And if it doesn't feel neutral, it's because we have a bias already, right? So for me, anxious thought did not feel neutral. Why? Because I was brought up in a household that respected anxious thought. Okay? So I already had a bias. But the principles allows us to step back and say, well, in principle, these are all exactly the same. Right? Really depressing feelings are coming from exactly the same thing as, oh, shall I have a sandwich for lunch? Those are just, they're two thoughts. They're made of the same thing. None more powerful than the other. They just feel different. Remember that illusion. So, the reason I'm saying this is you can be as uncompromising as you want in the way that you apply this understanding, right? You could have some like trauma or OCD and really consider, well, what if that's thought? There's a feeling there. What does that feeling tell me about the thought? How am I relating to those thoughts? Do I like the way I'm relating to those thoughts? What would it feel like to relate to them differently? What if I was unconcerned about those thoughts and feelings? It allows you to discover your freedom and play with it and discover, oh, I'm the one that's deciding how I relate to these thoughts. The thoughts aren't in the game. They're the object. Anyway.
Thank
I
you,
can see there are some hands up. Yeah.
Right, but Marina put a question in first on the.
Okay.
Have you got time for 3 more questions?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you've kind of probably answered all of them. However, we're going to go for it. the question of Marina is, so what to do and how to handle negative experiences?
Okay. So in a way, Marina, what I'm saying is you want to go a step before that, you see, because how you handle them is determined by how you understand them, right? So if you say, well, I've got this disturbing negative experience, how do I handle it? Well, you're already treating it as disturbing and negative, so it's too late to have any choice in how you handle it. It's too late, right? You've already taken a position on it. Oh, this is overwhelming and disturbing and upsetting. You've already taken that position, so you can only handle it that way. What we're talking about is coming back another step and saying, okay, here's a thought that has a feeling, and it's a negative one. How do you handle it? Well, you can handle it however you want. It's like what the feeling's telling you. Well, we're saying if you're feeling it, it must be a thought. So we know it's a thought. So we know it's just a made up piece of information in your mind that has no life of its own. So you say, well, how do I want to handle a made up temporary construction that will do nothing but cause me pain and dysfunction? How do I want to handle that? It's kind of like, well, maybe I don't want to worry about it, like what doesn't deserve any attention. But that ability to take a different position on it, this negative feeling, I'm taking the position. I'll give you an example. So I want to have a really lovely relationship with Leela, okay? And in order to do that, I've taken the position that if I don't like her, those thoughts are not helpful. I've taken that position. If I really like and love Leela, then I consider my thinking credible. And if I don't, I consider uncredible. That's my position. So I have lots of times where I really, sometimes, I really don't like her. But my position is that's irrelevant. It's just distorted thinking. I'm not interested. See? So the way you handle it is that you get to rethink your position. If you don't like those feelings, then you get to consider that those are thoughts you might not want to take much notice of. You might not want to give much credibility to. See?
Where's Leela?
She's somewhere in
Behind the double glazing. Good. Thanks, man. Thank you so much. Right, Annette, you, Julie, I think it was. Julie, have you decided? No, she's disappeared. Oh, there you go, Annette.
Yeah. Hi, Aaron.
Hiya.
I don't know if this is the appropriate question right now, but anyway, I'm going to put it forward. It was one of the opening questions I had a couple of days ago with Dave and Jenny. There's some great teachers out there with the principals, and I was on Facebook, been talking to someone was a good teacher and who's kind of teaching something different now, and it feels like they've kind of shunned the principals in a not very positive way.
Yes.
Saying that so many people have come to them and then left them because they felt disappointed or it's not working or down that avenue. I just wanted to know what your take was, because for me, 9 years now, I feel like it's something so precious that's really worked for me. And I'm not saying it will work for everybody, I don't know, but it's really worked for me. But I wouldn't want someone to demean the incredible impact that it can have on people.
Yeah. Oh no, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and but it's exactly what we're talking about. I've been involved in this, and I've been around it for 30 odd years, and I've been involved for a bit less than that. And I've seen that it's like there are always these junctures where we hit the limits of our understanding and we have a challenge. And because, it's always going to be some sort of challenged consciousness that we're in a challenge, we're not going to feel good, right? We're going to feel bad, which, from my perspective means we're not in a clear mind. We don't have perspective, but we might think we do. and then we get lost in it, right? And then see, a lot of times we're in this juncture, and you're at this point where it's like, well, is it just a lack of understanding? Like, if I considered that maybe this was thought and the feeling is telling me the quality of the thought, I would go deeper. Or I always have the option to say, well, I've gone as far as I can with the principles. What else you got? Right? And I've always done it. I decided, decades ago, I'm going to do this until it stops working. Right? Because I thought, well, it's just a theory. It's going to stop working at some point. But actually, now I've realized, oh, it's a truth. It's never going to stop working. So it's always as far as I'm willing to take it. And you're right. Sometimes people get upset or they get in a state, and instead of realizing, oh, it's me, it's my thinking, they go that way and say, oh, there's something else going on. Right? And they live in that reality. They live in that reality. And that's why I was so harping on, stick with the understanding, keep coming back to it, keep coming, because you'll go endlessly deeper, 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 deeper. There's no end to it until you decide, oh, I've come as far as I can, time for something else. And I find that it's what you said, Annette, is true. It's like most people that do that, or everyone I've seen do that today, has always been in an upset state, which should be some sort of clue, right? So it's kind of, we're seeing the same thing again. The principles can only help you if you're willing to use them as a guide. And to do that, you have to take accountability for your own feeling, and you have to be willing to consider that your feeling decides whether you're thinking clearly or not you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, right? Oh, I hate you. You're not thinking clearly. Oh, I'm thinking pretty clearly because look what you did to me. No. You don't decide that. Your feeling tells you whether you're thinking clearly. It's not up to you. It's not a subjective thing. Right?
Yeah.
So, but then you have to understand, like, we're all up against the challenge of the illusions we're in. Like, someone who does that, they're stumbling where they stumble, I stumble where I stumble. That's what's happening. There's no getting out of that. And then the last part about what you said is, I agree with you. I don't like to see anyone demeaning it because it's so potentially valuable to people. But everybody's living their understanding as much as they're willing to follow it and living the consequences of that. And there's nothing really we can do about that. You can only really hope that the truth will out. And, really one of the things that I got from Sid was, you worry about you. You worry about you. Because and this is, the amount of suffering and distorted thought I've gotten lost in based on what other people are doing with the principles is ridiculous. It's a bit of a blind spot. And so, but it's not helpful because all of a sudden I've got my eye out there. I'm not looking after my own consciousness, my own understanding. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Yeah, stay in my lane.
It's the only one you got.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aaron.
A pleasure. Thank you.
I don't know who it was who said, truth doesn't need protecting. It's like a lion. Set it free and it'll protect itself.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know who the hell said it. I think that is the beautiful thing, isn't it? That when you boil everything down, it's like you literally, it doesn't matter what concept, what idea somebody's come up with, where they've chosen to go, what direction they've chosen to walk in. They couldn't do it without consciousness, and they couldn't do it without thought. They just couldn't. So that the evidence for the principles is written all the way through it. In that respect, it doesn't need defending it. It just is what it is.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. Yeah. Now, how amazing is it that we've stumbled on somebody that stumbled on a fundamental truth that's this radically different from the frame of reference we live in? I mean, that is mind-blowing to me.
We're some lucky people, aren't we?
Yeah, really lucky.
We really are. I was saying, it's some people say I've got what do you, autism or something? I don't know. Jenny says I've got something because I got a flip from one thing to the next. I'll Pete sat there, he knows. I'll be felting birds one day. I'll get into needle felting and I'll felt these little animals, and then next thing I'm making jewelry. Next thing I'm doing lino cutting and I'm making a mess of everywhere. And next thing I'm metal detecting. Next thing I've got a drone and I'm all over that. And like, but there's one thing since 2013 that has never kind of shifted. That has never left my excitement and my enjoyment and my thrill of life and brought me joy is this conversation is what Sid brought to the world. And I love what you were saying, you know, when you were talking like this, like to see the infinite nature of it and to always be amazed by it and to always be grateful that you've never come to the end. You know, quite often, like I think you described that so beautifully, how we decide we've come to the end of that now, but that too is a thought. And it's like to keep that awareness of we are on this, we are walking the path, and this path is life, and this life is infinitely beautiful. And we have the option to go out and get lost, and we have the option to come back into our North Star, as you described it right at the beginning. Yeah. I don't know. I feel the more appreciation I gain for that North Star, the more exciting life becomes, and infinitely exciting. And I just thank you so much for being, Aaron. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Good. Beautiful.
Good. Well, I'm really touched that you guys invited me, and it's so nice to be able to speak with all you guys and to meet you. I'm really appreciative. I have to apologize. I have to jump off, I'm afraid.
Oh,
but
no.
It was lovely to have some time with you.
You give us heads up. You told us.
Yeah.
No, we.
Okay.
But Aaron, loads of love.
Yeah. Loads of love to you.
Thanks,
God
Aaron.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye.
Enjoy Hawaii.
Thank you.
Oh, that was nice. Right. Okay. Break time. It's 6 o'clock UK time now. We'll be coming back at 7:30. So that'll be the final leg. It's all over. Thank you all so much for being here. This has been, you've made it such a wonderful 3 days. And I look forward to seeing you in an hour and a half, if you can make it. Loads of love, everyone.